right this whole time. In order for the WNBA to save this league right now, you have to open the books. Let me repeat, open the books. What's the big deal? Guess what? You open the books and we're wrong. Okay, you know what? Sorry, WNBA, we were wrong. We'll take it back. We'll shut our mouths. We'll go play. We'll do everything you ask. So why not open the books?
Angel McCoughtry just said what a lot of people have been thinking but were too afraid to say out loud. Former WNBA All-Star champion, someone who's been in this league for over a decade, and she's calling out the Players Association for demanding financial transparency while refusing to provide it themselves. This isn't some random commentator throwing stones. This is someone who lived through multiple CBA negotiations telling current players they're being played, and the reaction from WNBA fans has been absolutely divided.
They don't have to. It's the same reason that the owner of Target don't open the books to the person working register number 6. The same reason that the owner of McDonald's isn't opening the books to the guy that's taking your order when you pull up through the drive-thru. It's the same reason. They don't have to open the books for you.
Here's the central argument that's tearing apart WNBA discourse right now. The WNBPA wants the league to open their financial books, show exactly where every dollar is coming from and where it's going. Revenue from media deals, sponsorships, merchandise, ticket sales, all of it. Their reasoning? You can't negotiate a fair revenue share percentage if you don't know what the actual revenue is. Sounds logical on the surface, but McCoughtry is pointing out something that makes a lot of business-minded people uncomfortable. No employee at any company can march into the CEO's office and demand to see the complete financial statements. That's not how employment works. That's not how collective bargaining works in any other industry. And yet the WNBPA has made financial transparency their hill to die on.
Big issue. First of all, the players have been standing their ground and the players have been right this whole time.
Speaking of gamesmanship, like we got now this rush from to get this done potentially by March 10th to not affect the season schedule. Mm-hmm. And that could now rush them. But the league also took 6 weeks during this process at one point to respond.
They took 6 weeks because the WNBPA sent in an offer that was the same as the last one.
Now watch how the narrative shifts when you bring up the WNBPA's own transparency issues, because here's what's been happening behind the scenes that most casual fans don't know about. Multiple player agents have gone on record, not anonymously but publicly, saying the WNBPA leadership has been selectively sharing information with the players they represent. Agents are telling their clients one thing based on what the PA is feeding them, then finding out later that critical details were left out. Contract proposals that the WNBPA rejected without fully explaining why. Counteroffers from the league that players didn't hear about for weeks. This isn't speculation. Agents have been reaching out directly to WNBA team owners and general managers asking for information because they can't get straight answers from their own players' association.
And they said, yo, this is a joke. We told you we're not going into $700 million in losses. Them not responding was the response. Y'all playing games. That was the response. I don't know why that's so hard to comprehend. You sent in a bogus proposal. They told you no. And then you sent in a proposal that was pretty much the same. So they say, you know what? Y'all are playing games. Goodbye. That was your response. What are you talking about?
And to respond to one of the WNBPA's, the Player Association's proposals that they sent to them.
That's unrealistic.
Right. So if anybody has moved or showed evidence of them not moving with pace in this entire negotiation, it was the league who took 6 weeks of this very critical, off season to not respond.
The 6-week silence McCoughtry mentions here is crucial context. In early February 2025, the WNBA made a proposal. The WNBA reviewed it and said it was unacceptable. They wanted significantly higher revenue sharing and wouldn't settle for anything less. So the league came back with a revised offer that addressed some concerns but held firm on the 15% revenue share cap, and then nothing. Radio silence for 6 weeks, no counterproposal, no explanation, no communication. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking toward the March 10th deadline that would impact the entire 2025 season schedule. Teams can't finalize rosters, free agents can't sign contracts, training camps are in limbo. McCoughtry's interpretation: the WNBPA sent in a proposal they knew was unrealistic, asking for terms that would put the league hundreds of millions in the red. And when the league rejected it, the PA used silence as a negotiating tactic, not to create a better deal, but to create division among the players themselves.
Afford to miss the WNBA salary. The owners, that group, they're billionaires. They could sit out the money.
Right.
But there's players here who need their salary.
Exactly. So y'all need to sign a CBA and quit playing game. I don't know why the owner's not making a deal less and less each day. Every day y'all make us wait up to the 10th, we dropping it by 2% or something. Every day y'all decide to play games, we are dropping it day by day, day by day.
That aren't playing Unrivaled, that aren't playing Athletes Unlimited, that haven't had the chance through brand deals and marketing or NIL, who aren't the top 15 players in the league, who aren't millionaires and need the money. And that starts to create rift and lack of unity in the association.
And that is so.
This is where it gets really uncomfortable for the Players Association. Because the strategy McCoughtry is describing here, using time pressure to fracture player unity, that's not a conspiracy theory. It's basic labor negotiation tactics, and it works because not every WNBA player is in the same financial position. Breanna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, they have massive Nike contracts, endorsement deals worth millions, international playing opportunities. They can afford to miss WNBA paychecks if it means securing a better long-term deal. But what about the player making $76,000 on a minimum contract? The veteran role player on her last season who needs that WNBA salary to pay her mortgage? The undrafted free agent fighting for a roster spot who can't afford to play hardball? The longer this drags out, the more those economic divisions create pressure. Players who desperately need their WNBA income start questioning whether the PA's demands are worth missing paychecks. And that's exactly when ownership has leverage, when the union starts fracturing from within.
So, Garage, so last thing I'm going to say about that is, I know you guys don't want to release these books, but release Kathy Engelberg's salary, like I said before. What does she make? Okay, what is she getting? We know at least she's making $3 million. Put it out there, because it's unrealistic that everybody's salary is out once again. Kathy's is hidden. She's the only salary who's hidden. So release that.
Yeah, I completely understand where this is coming from. Like, again, player hat. How many years have you played in the league?
I mean, 12, 13 years. But like you said, girls are not making money.
I feel like what I'm hearing is like, you want to know like where the money is going, how much is coming in, transparency. And it's hard to have an in-faith negotiation when there's been so much, just a lack of transparency going both ways.
Now, what about the lack of do y'all address the lack of transparency the agent said they're receiving from the actual...
And now we get to the Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's salary question, which has become a rallying cry for players demanding transparency. Here's what we know for certain. Engelbert's exact compensation has never been publicly disclosed. Industry estimates put it somewhere between $3 and $5 million annually, but the WNBA has never confirmed those numbers. For context, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver makes approximately $10 million per year overseeing a league that generates $10 billion in annual revenue. If Engelbert is making $3 to $5 million while the WNBA generates minus, according to league statements, somewhere between $200 and $300 million in revenue, that's a significantly higher percentage of total revenue going to executive compensation. Players see that discrepancy and ask a fair question. If every player's salary is public information, published on websites for fans to scrutinize, why is the commissioner's salary hidden? Why is that the one number we're not allowed to know? And when you're asking players to accept a 15% revenue share while refusing to disclose how much revenue is going to executive pay, it creates exactly the kind of distrust that's poisoning these negotiations.
A players' union? Do you guys address that? See, there's been a lack of transparency from the WNBPA to the players that it's representing and their representation as well, which is why the agents are pissed off and they're not happy. Okay, they feel like the WNBPA has not been giving them the proper information. They've been giving them bits and pieces. You know, when somebody tell you a story and they only tell you the good parts, or they only tell you the parts of the story that they want you to know, they don't give you the full story. That's what the players and the agents feel like the WNBPA has been doing, which is why they've reached out to WNBA owners and GMs directly to say, hey, how can we talk direct? How can I help facilitate, get this done? My players want to play. I don't know what the WNBPA is talking about, but my players are good to go and ready to rock. So I just think it's interesting that you guys demand all this transparency from these owners and yada, 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 but yet the WNBPA isn't even being transparent with the players in which it's representing. Get down in the comments and let me know what you think.
This is the fundamental disconnect that's making this CBA negotiation so toxic. Both sides are demanding transparency from the other while refusing to provide it themselves. The WNBA won't open their complete financial books. The WNBA won't fully disclose their negotiating strategy to the players and agents they represent. And caught in the middle are players who just want to know whether they're getting a fair deal. McCoughtry's comparison to McDonald's and Target employees is deliberately provocative, and a lot of players have taken offense to it. But strip away the inflammatory language, and there's a legitimate point buried in there. Collective bargaining agreements in every professional sports league involve some level of financial disclosure, but complete transparency? That's never been the standard. The NFL doesn't open their books completely, MLB doesn't. The NBA has revenue sharing built into their CBA, but the formula is based on agreed-upon revenue categories, not unlimited access to every financial document. The WNBA has offered to share specific revenue data related to the categories that would be included in the revenue sharing calculation. The WNBA is saying that's not enough. They want everything.
Well, replacement players, I'm cool with that. We don't really care to watch none of these vets for real no more anyway, at this point. The way they've drugged this out, and then you're talking about, oh, they were right. How are they right when the very players that the WNBPA are representing are calling the leadership board, the WNBPA, greedy? They're calling them out saying, we want to sign the deal. We want to play. What are y'all doing? So how are they right? They're not on the same page.
And this is where McCoughtry crosses a line that's going to alienate a lot of WNBA fans. Saying you'd be fine with replacement players, that you don't care about watching the veterans anymore. That's the kind of statement that reveals whose side you're really on in this fight. Because here's the reality. The WNBA's recent growth isn't just about Caitlin Clark, despite what some narratives want you to believe. Yes, Clark's rookie season drove massive ratings increases. Yes, she brought in new fans who'd never watched women's basketball before. But the league's foundation was built by those veterans McCoughtry is now dismissing. Aja Wilson won MVP, putting up historic numbers. Breanna Stewart has been the league's most complete player for years. Nefias Lee Collier elevated her game to superstar status. The idea that you can just plug in replacement players and maintain the product quality. That's the same argument NBA owners made in 1998 when they locked out players and lost half the season. It didn't work then, and it won't work now. Fans don't show up to watch inferior basketball just because you put WNBA jerseys on the players. So let's cut through all the noise and talk about what's actually happening here, because this controversy reveals something much bigger than just a CBA negotiation gone wrong. Angel McCoughtry's comments represent a growing divide in how people view the WNBA's business model. On one side, you have players and supporters who believe the league has been undervaluing and underpaying its athletes for decades, using "we're not profitable yet" as an excuse, while NBA ownership treats the WNBA as a tax write-off rather than a genuine investment. They point to sold-out arenas, record television ratings, expansion teams selling for $250 million, and ask a reasonable question: if the league is such a money pit, why are billionaires fighting for the chance to own teams? On the other side, you have people like McCoughtry, who take a more traditional business approach. The WNBA has offered to increase maximum salaries from $241,000 to $1.3 million. They've offered to increase the salary cap, improve travel conditions, provide better benefits. By any objective measure, this is a massive increase in player compensation. And if players reject that offer because they want to see the complete financial books first, well, that's their choice, but they need to accept the consequences. Here's what makes this particularly messy. Both sides have legitimate grievances, and both sides are handling this poorly. The WNBA's refusal to provide detailed financial transparency does create suspicion. When you're asking players to trust that 15% revenue share is fair, but you won't show them the revenue calculations, that's going to breed distrust, especially when Commissioner Engelbert's salary remains mysteriously hidden, while every player's contract is public information. But the WNBA's strategy has been equally problematic. Sending in proposals that would create $700 million in losses, that's not serious negotiating, that's posturing. Taking 6 weeks to respond to league offers while the season deadline approaches, that's not protecting player interests, that's playing chicken with people's livelihoods. And most damaging, the lack of communication between PA leadership and the players and agents they represent has created exactly the kind of internal division that destroys union leverage. The agents reaching out to owners directly, bypassing the PA entirely, that's not normal. That's what happens when representatives don't trust their own union leadership to negotiate in good faith. When agents are telling their clients, "we need to get this deal done," while the PA is telling those same players, "hold the line, don't cave," you've got a fundamental breakdown in the collective bargaining process. And McCoughtry is right about one thing. Even if she said it in the most inflammatory way possible, the economic pressure falls differently depending on where you sit. Breanna Stewart can hold out indefinitely. She's got Puma money, overseas options, financial security. But what about Lexi Hull? What about the second-round pick making minimum salary, who needs that WNBA paycheck? The longer this drags out, the more those players are going to pressure the PA to take the deal, and that's when union solidarity collapses. The Caitlin Clark angle adds another complicated layer to this whole mess, because whether people want to admit it or not, Clark's presence fundamentally changed the WNBA's leverage position. When one player drives a 40% increase in attendance, when her games are getting 3 times the television viewership of games she's not in, when she's single-handedly responsible for a massive portion of the league's recent growth, that changes the economic equation. The WNBA can credibly argue, look at what happened when we finally got mainstream attention. Look at these ratings, this attendance, this sponsorship revenue. We're investing that growth back into player salaries with this new CBA offer. Take the deal, let's build on this momentum. And that's a compelling argument to players who see the league finally breaking through culturally. But players can also argue, you just proved the product has massive value when marketed correctly. You've been underinvesting in promotion for years, and the moment you actually tried, the revenue exploded. So don't tell us the league can't afford better revenue sharing, you just weren't trying hard enough to maximize revenue before. Both arguments have merit. Both are probably partially true. Here's what's getting lost in all the anger and accusations. This is actually a pivotal moment for the WNBA, and how this gets resolved will determine the league's trajectory for the next decade. If the players hold firm, force real financial transparency, and secure a better revenue-sharing deal, it sets a precedent that could fundamentally change how women's professional sports leagues operate. It tells future players, you have leverage, use it, don't settle for whatever ownership offers just because they say it's the best they can do. But if this drags into a work stoppage, if the 2025 season is delayed or canceled, if casual fans who just discovered the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark tune out because there's no basketball to watch, that could set the league back years. All that momentum, all that cultural breakthrough, all those new fans, gone. And it might not come back. The March 10th deadline is real. Training camps need to start, schedules need to be finalized, free agents need to sign contracts. Every day this goes unresolved increases the risk of real damage to the 2025 season, and despite what McCoughtry says about being fine with replacement players, that's not a realistic option. The WNBA's credibility as a professional league depends on having the best players in the world on the court. Replacement players would be a disaster. So what's the solution? Probably some form of compromise that nobody loves but everyone can live with. The league provides more financial disclosure than they wanted to, but not complete access to everything. The players accept a revenue-sharing percentage that's higher than 15, but lower than what they initially demanded. Both sides claim victory. Both sides feel like they gave up too much, and the season starts on time. That's how these things usually end. Not with one side winning decisively, but with both sides exhausted enough to accept a middle ground. But the bigger question is whether the relationship between players and ownership can recover from this. Because the distrust McCoughtry is talking about, that's real, and it's not going away just because a CBA gets signed. Players are going to remember that the league fought them on transparency. Owners are going to remember that the PA was willing to risk the season over demands they considered unrealistic. That resentment doesn't disappear. And for fans, this whole mess has been deeply uncomfortable to watch, because most WNBA fans want the players to get paid fairly. They want the league to succeed. They want women's basketball to continue growing. But watching this play out publicly, with accusations flying in both directions, with respected veterans like McCoughtry turning on current players, with agents bypassing the union, with everything getting messier by the day, it's exhausting. The WNBA finally had mainstream momentum, finally had cultural relevance beyond just the hardcore fans who've supported the league for decades, finally had the attention and opportunity to become something bigger. And instead of capitalizing on that moment, we're watching a CBA negotiation threaten to derail everything. So here's the question you need to answer. Whose approach makes more sense to you? The players demanding complete financial transparency before they'll agree to any deal, even if it means risking the season, or the ownership position that they've made a generous offer. Take it or leave it. We're not opening our books for employees. You can't say both sides are right. This is a fundamental disagreement about how professional sports leagues should operate. Pick a side and defend it in the comments, because this conversation is far from over.